The number one reason why people cannot use their intuition is for the reason of needing a logic. So here's the thing. Your intuition, when it speaks to you in a feeling. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you want to see it, a lot of times when we go to make a decision, some people need logic to be able to back that decision that they are feeling. And intuition speaks to you in a feeling, and the reason why most people can't follow their intuition all the time is because sometimes they can't find a logical reason of why they should follow their intuition. So logical reason meaning, well, it's going to be safe to make that decision. I'm not going to lose. I'm going to gain from making that decision. I'm not going to be rejected from making that decision. And all those kind of things is what builds up the logic. Now, the thing about the intuition is that it doesn't speak to you in logic. It doesn't require a logical reason of why you should follow that feeling. And that's the number one reason why most people fail, is because they go, oh, I feel something, they're feeling it, but then they can't go and back that feeling. They can't make that decision to follow the feeling because they can't find a logical reason that aligns with that feeling. And what you got to understand, even if you do find a logical reason of why you should follow the feeling, you're more than likely now to be following the logical reason rather than staying in the flow of following that intuitive feeling. Because your intuition isn't like a straight line. You have an intuitive feeling, and it puts you on a direction. And you go down that direction. But for me, like when I'm using my intuition or I'm following the feeling, and I'm going to distinguish what the difference between intuition and the feeling is in a moment. But when I am using my intuition, I don't just use it for once. I'm not a once-off intuitive guy. It's not a one-time wonder. I don't go, oh, I feel to go in this direction. I feel to do this intuitively. The idea for me to feel that is then to be able to continue to follow that. All right. So if I feel to go in this direction, I will allow myself to stay in the moment and allow myself to continue to feel, because as I go this direction, then it'll bend around and go this direction, and then it'll bend around and go in this direction. It's just like a road. It's a windy road. And unfortunately, when you are and this is what I was saying to you before, even if you had the ability to follow your intuition because you found a logical reason of why you should follow your intuition, your attention is now your decision is based on the logic. So you're no longer following the intuition. Yes, it set you in the right direction, but it's like you having a GPS. That's what the intuition is, right? And the GPS goes, head southeast. So you travel southeast, and then you think to yourself, well, it makes sense to go southeast because I want to go there. There's a restaurant I want to visit there. And you know what? It's downhill. I'm going to head southeast. It's downhill. It seems like the path is easy. There's not much risk. I'm not going to get hurt. Let's go down southeast, right? But the thing is, if you've made a decision based on the logic of why you're following the intuition, why you're heading southeast, your attention is, well, I'm going down there because there's good restaurants. I'm going down there because it's an easy path. So when you've turned the GPS off, you're now following the intuition. You're now following the logic. So that's where people get lost, and they have this intuitive feeling, but they can't live it, they can't sustain it, they can't keep it, they disconnect from the intuition. The GPS, if you got to stay with your GPS, the intuition is your GPS. By staying with the GPS, it means that if you're following your intuition, you're following the intuition because you're following your intuition. You're following your intuition because it feels true, right? You don't have a reason necessarily, and there may be lots of reasons that may align the path that you're headed with your intuition, but you got to make sure you don't get distracted with the reasons. Well, I'm going southeast because it's good restaurants there. No, you're going down that way because the GPS is leading you down that way, right? And until you get there, you won't really realize why you're necessarily going there. But if you need to determine why you're necessarily going there, I'm going southeast because there's nice restaurants, you've turned the GPS off. You're just going, I'm going southeast, right? But then when the GPS turns back on and goes, hey, now you got to turn a right and make a right-hand turn to the west, right? Your GPS is off because you're now made a decision purely based on what is in the outcome and result of traveling southeast. See, that's the thing. All right, that's the reason why most people fail in the ability to use their intuition, is because they need a logical reason. And even if you had the ability to find a logical reason of why you should follow your intuition, you're no longer following your intuition. The intuition instigated, it set you off in the right direction, but now your decision is made purely because of the outcome or result that is headed down that path, that is headed down that direction, and therefore you're no longer using your intuition, you're now using your logic. It's determined by the outcome and result. Good question coming up just now is, how do you know the difference between intuition, reason, and logic? Very easy. Well, I say very easy, it's not necessarily easy, it's very simple. The intuition feels light, okay? The moment you're making a decision based on reason, suddenly there's a heaviness. What's the heaviness? It's a little bit of attachment, right? Is that outcome really going to give me what I want? Is that outcome going to hurt me? Am I going to be rejected by that outcome? Am I going to gain money or lose money? There's a heaviness that's created, right? When you're following the intuition, you're following a knowing, right? The intuition speaks to you in a knowing, and that's all it is. It's a knowing. You know, I once was sitting in a cafe. I like to share this story, and I'm sitting there and I'm hearing these two women behind me, and I started eavesdropping because I heard them use the word intuition. I was like, oh, what's going on here? Because that's a topic I'm very interested in, intuition. So one lady was telling what seemed to be like her best friend about a decision that was, I didn't know exactly what the decision was because I got in the half conversation, and but the decision was a big decision. It was going to change her life. Maybe it was moving countries, or I don't know what it was. But her friend was kind of playing devil's advocate and was like, are you sure you want to do this? Is this the right thing for you right now? Maybe you should just hold on a little bit. Like, maybe you shouldn't make that decision. And her friend's like, no, I just know I got to do this. This is the time. I need to do it now. So the friend that's playing devil's advocate goes, but how do you know? And she goes, I don't know. I just know. Like, how many times have you said, I don't know, I just know? What you're saying is, I don't know any logical reason, but I just know because the intuition speaks to you in a sensation of knowing. You have a knowing that you want to do this, that you must do this. This is what you got to do. This is a knowing, but you don't know any logical reasons of why you should do this. That's why you say, I don't know, I just know. Okay, what you're saying is, I don't know any logical reasons. I don't know any reasons, but I just know I got to do this. I just know that I can't trust this person. I just know I can trust this person. I just know that this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm meant to go. So you got to understand that about the intuition. It speaks to you in a knowing. There's a big difference. The difference of the knowing is it feels light, right? You won't have reasons, so you're not getting certainty from the reasons. Usually you make decisions based around your reasons. You're making decisions based around the outcome and the result, and then you might, or around your plan. The plan sometimes gives you a bit of certainty. So you gain certainty from your past experience, you gain certainty from your plan, you gain certainty from, hey, look, it's about to happen, the outcome result, and you can look at your plan and you go, well, I'm going to get there. Right? But if you're only used to making decisions from gaining certainty from your plan or from past experiences, then you won't be able to have the ability to use your intuition, right? Because your intuition, you must have the ability to follow the knowing without, and that, I mean, to me, it feels fine to follow the knowing until, I remember there was a time where it didn't feel fine because you're not used to using it. You don't use it, you kind of lose it, kind of thing. If you don't use your intuition, and then every time you have the opportunity to use it, you fall short because you're like, well, I don't know if it's going to work, or what if I fail, or what if I get rejected, or what if it loses money, and so on. So look, I'm a massive believer of using intuition. In fact, that's all I do. Everything in my life, every change of my path in my life, of my journey, every decision, well, not every decision, that's incorrect, because we make lots of logical decisions. There's times to make logical decisions, but there's times to make intuitive decisions. But every time that it's time, or it's the moment for me to make intuitive decisions, I only make the intuitive decisions. Okay, so but I just wanted to kind of share with you what the difference is when you're making an intuitive decision versus, when it's purely driven by logic. There's just a slight difference. You won't notice it until it's a fine line. It's like, you're standing over here in intuition, and you won't notice how different it is until you go across the line into making a logical decision. There's a change. When sometimes you jump in the ocean and you're going into the ocean, and there's a temperature change as you go deeper, or you go deeper into from the shore. You kind of go in, not because you're standing next to someone who's taking a piss. That's not what I'm talking about, right? Although that could be it too. No, I'm talking about, you jump into the ocean and you go for a swim, and you kind of take a dive in, and as you go deeper into the ocean, there's a temperature change. It's like that. Suddenly you notice, oh, it feels different, right? And it feels different because when you're making a decision based on logic, there's a little bit of tightness, right? Even though you perceive that you can see that this is going to happen logically, this plan is foolproof, there's still a little bit of anticipation. What if it doesn't happen? There's a little bit of attachment. I'm a big sporting buff, as most of you may know. When I watch a football game, and let's say my team is strong favorites, like there's been so many games that I've watched and my team is absolutely strong favorite, and you just know they're going to win. Like logically, they're going to win, right? But once the game starts, even though they're strong favorites, they're the best team, you still have this anticipation, like a closeness. It's a little bit of a stress of, but what if they lose? Right? And it's funny, it's every time I watch my football team, when they are the most strongest favorites, that's when they drop the ball. Why? Because they're thinking we're the strong favorites, right? We should win, right? The moment you expect to win, that's when things fall apart, because your certainty is coming from your expectation. Your certainty is not coming from your knowing, which presents itself in the present moment. And that's the other thing that you want to understand about intuition, to be able to use your intuition more frequently, for that to become more familiar, what the feeling of the intuition is. It's intuition, you got to understand, it speaks to you in the moment. It speaks in the now. It's speaking in the now, and it's speaking for the now. It's a moment thing. It's a now thing. Listen to what I just said to you. It's speaking to you in the now, like in the moment, in the now, and it's speaking for the now, right? Your mind comes and goes, well, I feel this and I want to do this. I have this idea, or I'm ready to settle down, or whatever it is that you're feeling intuitively. Then your mind comes in and wants to project it into the future. I said to you, it speaks to you in the now for the now. Okay? But then your mind wants to know, yeah, but where's it going to go? Where's it going to lead me? Why does your mind want to go there? Because it wants to have logical reasons of, is this a good decision or a bad decision? It wants to project. It feels safer to know. The further it can see into its path, it feels safer. And again, hence why we are so attached to always having a plan, because the plan makes us feel safer. Not for everybody. Some people, it's the knowing that they feel they're safe in. It's following their intuition, right? So every time when I have a feeling, I know that it's setting me on a direction that is going somewhere. It's going to an outcome result, but I don't let my mind go into the outcome result. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm going to follow this feeling, and then I put myself in that direction. But I understand that when I need to know the next step, and that maybe the next 10 steps, it will come to me. It will come to me where? Not in the next 10 steps. It will come to me in the moment. This intuition speaks to you in the moment, for the moment. It's kind of like that. You're living moment by moment, which sometimes it scares the hell out of people. It doesn't mean you have to live financially moment to moment. That's not necessarily what it means. It means that your sense of knowing, your sense of creativity, your sense of loving, it's all in the moment. Right? And what comes for you in the moment is for the moment. It's a present. It's a gift for the present moment. It's not like, oh, I've got this intuition. I've got this feeling now. I want to store this for the future. It's not a delayed gratification. It's an instant gratification. Right? We try to make it into, oh, I want to make this and put this towards the future, and when I can get there, I can reward myself. It's not like that. It's very rewarding, but it's rewarding here. So that's the thing about intuition. Now, if I may go a little bit deeper, I want to be able to distinguish the difference between your intuition and the feeling. Now, ever heard people say, I'm following the feeling? Like, what's the difference between intuition and a feeling? There's three different things that I can actually elaborate on here. One, if you go back to intuition, I'll come back to the feeling in a second. One is an emotion, and one is an intuitive feeling. Okay, so an emotion is a reaction to something. So please do not mistaken your emotion as your intuitive feeling. For example, let me give you an example. So if I'm speaking to people and I'm mentoring clients about using their intuition, all their attention's on their intuition, right? And I'll just give you a silly example, but maybe one of the clients, slapped the other client in a retreat. This hasn't happened. I'm just making something up, right? But this is the kind of answers you get. You go, hey, why did you slap that person? And they'll go, oh, I felt to. Like, it was my intuition, I think. I just felt to, right? And I said, why did you feel to? And well, they pissed me off, right? They said so. You see, let's just be very clear. I'm using a crazy example here because I just want you to see how ridiculous it is, right? That's not your intuition. That is your emotional reaction towards someone. That is your emotional reaction towards your circumstances. Okay? You have a judgment of someone, or you have a judgment of what you're seeing, and therefore that is causing you to have a reaction, right? A feeling or intuitive feeling is not a reaction, it's a response. Okay, it's not a reaction. So please understand, when we go down on a spiritual path, we sometimes change the word from, I just love to, right? Or, but really what you're really saying is, I need to. You see, the intuition doesn't need to. It's not doing it because it needs to. It's doing it because it loves to. We're trying to change words to fit into our journey that we're currently experiencing. So if you're being spiritual, right, you won't say, I need to, you go, I love to, right? You have a reaction, an emotional reaction. You'll just say, well, it's my feeling. You're experiencing fear, right? You want to do something, you feel to do something, but you're experiencing fear. You'll say, no, I just don't feel to. Right? So you just be aware of that, right? Please understand that is your emotional reaction. That is not your feeling, right? That is not your intuitive feeling. So you got your emotional reactions, and then you've got your intuitive feeling, okay? Then there's something far deeper, which I'm just going to call the feeling. So you got intuitive feeling and the feeling. Now, your intuitive feeling is, it's part of your wisdom. Right? And wisdom is something you attain when you start to have a direct experience of what you know. Now, if you've done any of my work, you understand that I always say that, knowledge is not power, it's wisdom. Wisdom is power. Yes, knowledge is powerful, but the real power comes in your wisdom. And wisdom is something you attain when you've had a direct experience of what you knew once. See, there's one thing to know something, and then there's another thing to have a first-hand experience, a direct experience of it. When you have a direct experience of it, it becomes your wisdom. So what I'm trying to say is that with intuition, right? It's a little bit, I won't say influence, but there's a template. It's like, what instigates your intuition. Like, for example, all right, you're afraid of darkness, right? Just giving you an example, right? And then one day you're walking down the street, and the street starts to become more narrow and narrow, and it's nighttime, and it's becoming more and more narrow and narrow, and it's becoming darker and darker, right? So then you'll go, oh, my intuition says not to go here. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. Now that your intuition is based on a previous experience that you had when you have a kid, and in this case, it's an experience that has caused you to have fear. So your intuition is speaking up, going, "Hey, don't go down this dark alley," right? Because if you go down this dark alley, it's going to get dark, and so it's almost like your intuition is saving you from experiencing the fear that you experienced when you were a child. Okay, you're avoiding the darkness. Very, very simple. Okay, but so that's why I wanted to kind of let you know your intuition is guiding you. Yes, it's guiding, but it's guiding you based on your own personal experiences and reference points that you have. Right? The difference between the feeling and the intuitive feeling is the feeling is not guiding you necessarily based on past experience. Here's the best way I explain it to people. The intuitive feeling is it has a template, right? And that template is based on your past references. So what I'm trying to say is it's come from the known, right? What I mean by the known, it's known to you. It's known to you as a past experience, as a reference point, so it as much as it's a GPS for you, it's not your most powerful feeling, if you like, right? There's another part of you that is using the feeling that when the feeling presents to you, you have no choice but to follow it. Okay, and when I say you have no choice, like of course you have a choice, but it feels like if I don't follow this, like it feels like I'm dying. Right? The feeling arises from the unknown. The intuitive feeling arises from the known. It's based on your previous experience. It's based on based on having, you become streetwise. As you become older, you have some streetwise. So then your intuition is guiding you around your idea of what is streetwise. You have knowledge around business, for example, and marketing, right? Then your intuition guides you between the lines of what knowledge that you have around business, right? So you're using your intuition, but you're using it and it's guiding you within what you know. Right? And that's the difference. The feeling, which is the part of you that presents itself, and it's really it's the infinite part of you. You hear me talk about this all the time. You became here not to be limited. You're only pretending to be limited. You're really an infinite being in a finite world, and it's up to you to come to that point of having that realization. The feeling is infinite. That's why if you heard me speak about infinity in the past, or if you look at any of my work, infinity is the unknown, right? And people go, well, infinity is the unknown. Well, I don't know if I want to go there. I don't. But you see, you got to understand, right? People don't like to hear the unknown because they think to themselves, well, there's a lot of uncertainty. But the thing about the infinity is that when you're using your infinite capacity, you find your certainty in the uncertain, right? The infinite feeling, the feeling, if you like, speaks to you purely in the now, right? Purely in the now. And as I said to you, the intuition speaks to you in the now as well. But the intuition, it can have references to the past and future. And when I say that, what I mean by that is the way I describe the present moment and the now. The present moment is something you experience in time, where you have a past, a reference point of the past, and you have a reference point of the future, and then you have this thing called the present moment. When you go into the now, there is no past or future, right? So it's a little bit deeper, but the feeling is your infinite capacity. It's your infinite particle, right? You have this feeling that comes and arises and comes through you, and it feels like you have no choice in the matter but to follow it. To give you an example, falling in love. Okay, you don't decide to fall in love with someone. If you did, you're probably still not in love, right? You don't decide it. You realize that you fall in love with someone, right? And you realize it because the feeling presented itself, and it feels like to you, your interpretation of it. And if you go back to go when, like, if you got children, you got pets, right? You got a partner, right? If you love your mother, your father, anyone, if there's people in your life that you love, you're not sitting there going, I'm going to love you, I'm going to decide to love you or not, right? If anything, you realize that the love is there, right? You have this love for them. And you're interpreting this, and your interpretation is like, I am deciding to love them. But that's not what's happening. You are realizing that you have love for them. You don't even love them, you have love for them. There is a huge amount. Like, I didn't sit there when my child was born, or my two kids born, and I didn't sit there going, I wonder if I'm gonna really work at this. It's not something you work at. I'm gonna work at this and to love my child. No, like the love was there. I didn't try to make the love there. I didn't question if the love was there. The love was there, right? That is the feeling, right? It's different from your create or your intuitive feeling. It's a feeling of, why you're alive. This is your life force, right? I just kind of wanted to distinguish the difference, because not many people do talk about that. Probably because not many people know very much about it. But this is my work, and this is what I've been doing for a very long time. So there's the difference between an emotion. An emotion is a reaction to your circumstances. It's a reaction to somebody, and all those reactions are based on your perception. And your perception is based on your beliefs and judgments that you have, right? So that's a different box there. Let's just put that aside, right? Don't think to yourself, you're having an emotional reaction and you go, I'm following my feeling, right? For example, you see a good business opportunity, right? And like, you think to yourself, wow, this is going to make me really rich. This is a good opportunity. And this is how people get sucked into scams, right? Because this part kicks in, and then they go, I have a really good feeling about this. Or they go, I'm following my intuition in this business opportunity, right? Which is riddled with reasons. And those reasons is creating your emotional reactions. Please, that's not your intuition. Please put that aside. Okay, your intuition is something that finds you. It doesn't have reasons, right? The intuition presents itself. You feel it, and as I said to you, the main difference between the intuitive feeling and the feeling is the intuitive feeling presents itself in the known. So therefore, it's not like you have reasons to follow the intuition, but the intuitive feeling is presenting itself in what you know. It comes to you in the wisdom that you have, right? As I just gave you the two different examples. For example, when you go down the dark alley, and you're like, oh, I feel not to go down this dark alley. But that is because you have a reference point of what happens when you go down the dark alley, right? So that's why your intuition is going, hey, don't go down that dark alley. But it's only saying don't go down that dark alley because you have fear around going down dark alleys. Someone else might not have fear going down that dark alleys. So therefore, their intuition is not going beep, 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 don't go down this dark alley, right? So please understand that your intuition, therefore, is coming from the known. It's coming from what you know, but not what you know as knowledge, but what you know as wisdom. And remember, the difference between knowledge and wisdom is when you've had a direct experience of what you once knew. You have knowledge around it, and then once you experience that knowledge, it becomes wisdom. Okay, so that's where your intuition is guiding you. It's coming from the known. The feeling is coming from the unknown. It's completely different. And sometimes when I speak about the feeling, that's just like, for some people, it's just like it's just way out. But it's not that way out. I just gave you examples of when you fell in love with somebody, right? If you want me to give you another example, when you decided to do what you love to do. If there's someone here who has found what they really love to do, and again, there's no reason why they love it. Now, don't get me wrong, you might be making good money from it, you might be traveling around the world. Well, no one's doing that at the moment, we're in pandemic, but do you know what I mean? You might have lots of reasons that you could see, all right? And be careful, because when you can see the reasons, just make sure you don't start to follow the reasons of why you love to do what you love to do. Stay true to why you love it, which is you just love it. If I ask any young person who's just found their passion, right? Usually a young person, right? Because they still don't know the reasons of what the benefits of what, doing what they love has come to them. Like, they haven't found the benefits yet, right? So you find a young person who's found their passion. Maybe the passion is to dance. Maybe the passion is to sing. Maybe the passion is to paint. Maybe the passion is to fly an aeroplane, right? But if I ask that one young person, I say, hey, why do you do what you do? They will always say, I don't know, I just love it. Again, I don't know any reason, I just love it. Now, as we develop and we get older, we start to see the reasons, and this is when we start to lose our flow. We start to see the reasons, and then we make it about the reasons rather than the love. Because love doesn't have reasons, right? It's only need or fear that has reasons. Right? And so the moment you start to follow the reasons, you lose your flow, because you're no longer following what? Your intuition. You're no longer following what you love. Okay? Or in this case, we're talking about not intuition here, I'm talking about the feeling. So wipe that. I'm talking about the feeling, not the intuition there, just not to confuse you there. Right? So even when it comes to doing what you love to do, you didn't decide that is what you love to do. Now, please understand, there's a part of you going, yes, I did. Yes, because that's what happens. You miss it, right? There's a part of you that goes, yes, you decided to follow what it is that you love to do. Yes, I agree with you. You decided to follow what it is that you love to do, but you didn't decide what it is that you love to do, because that presented itself to you in a feeling. Make no mistake. Just like you didn't decide to fall in love with your partner, you didn't decide to fall in love with your child. The love was there, and all you did is you realized that you loved them, right? It's the same thing. When you find your passion, you find what you love to do. Love is always something that finds you. You don't find it. When you find your passion, you realize that you have passion for that. You realize that you love that, and you make a decision to then follow the feeling, to then follow what you love. But you didn't decide it. That is the feeling. So it's not that far-fetched for some. People think that, wow, I get the intuition, right? I get the emotional reaction, but the feeling, you're missing it. You're using it more than you think. Even your intuition, you're using it more than you think. But what happens is we have this thief in our head, right? I sometimes refer to the thief as the monkey. This monkey, or if you like, the ego, what it does, it hijacks. So the moment you're deciding to follow the feeling, the ego goes, no, I decided that this is what I love to do. The ego wants to be in control. No, you didn't decide. I decided to love my partner. No, you didn't decide. You realized you love. I decided to love my child. No, you didn't. Anytime you decided to love anything, it was short-lived. Make no mistake. Anytime you decided to love, you fell on your ass. That's what happened, right? You got rejected. You fell on your ass. You deciding to fall in love with someone is like you sitting there going, well, do they make good money? Are they going to give me good sex? And you're making logical decisions. That has never lasted. Make no mistake about that. I don't have to tell you that. You need to be honest with yourself and have a look at your life. Every time you decided, it wasn't the real decision. the decision of love is realized. Whether it's doing what you love to do and realize, or finding what it is that you're passionate about. You don't find it, it finds you. You just realize, yes, I have passion to play the piano, right? You didn't decide it. Right? You might have stories that will support for you to go, well, like for example, I love flying, right? And I remember when I was a kid, maybe 5 years old, my dad used to work at the airport. He took me to the airport. He took me to the end of the runway and we watched the planes take off. I never forget. I remember this memory. And we watched the undercarriage, the wheels go back up as the aircraft took off. So then I then, the part of me that thinks it's deciding that what it is that I love to do goes, yes, when people go, well, when did you find out you love flying? I would go, well, it was when my dad used to take me to the airport, right? But my mum used to try to make me play the piano. Why didn't I play the piano? Why do I not have a musical note in my body, right? Why did that not happen? You see what I'm saying? Your logical mind will say to yourself, or your ego in this case, will say that, you decided this because it wants to have control over it. I decided to love that person. Why does the ego want you to think that it decided to love that person? Because the ego wants to have control so it can decide not to love that person. Because if things get unsafe, if the ego suddenly feels unsafe in this relationship, it wants to be able to say, well, I don't love you. Because if it didn't decide to love that person, then it might be in trouble. And it being is the ego. And goes, well, I want to be the one that decided here because if I decided, therefore I have control. Now, again, your decision-making process is deciding to follow it. When I talk about following the feeling, I always say to people that, in following the feeling, I realize a decision that's already made. And I'm pointing to my heart here. Because that's where you feel it, right? You realize a decision that's already made. Now, that decision that is already made, it could be a knowing, it could be the love you have for your child, it could be the love, I found my passion of doing what I love to do, right? And you realize that you have this love. You then, I'm pointing to my head here, I then decide to follow the decision that's already made. In other words, my head then follows my heart. Right? That's your decision-making process, right? But the ego wants you to think. It hijacks the entire process, it hijacks the entire feeling and says, yeah. Not only did we decide to follow the feeling, but you decided the feeling as well, right? No, you didn't. You didn't decide the feeling, you realized it. And that is the feeling, different to the intuitive feeling. The intuitive feeling comes from the known. The feeling comes from a place where everything that is one. Everything that moves as one, right? And I say it moves as one. You don't see it necessarily, but everything is one and everything is moving as one. Everything is interconnected. That is the place where the feeling is coming to you. You hear it all the time. Love doesn't have reasons. Love is not something you find. Love is something that finds you. How does it find you? It's like a bubble from deep, deep, deep in the ocean. It rises up. And what happens when the deep bubble rises to the surface of the ocean? It goes pop, and the pop is in your heart. And you're like, suddenly you feel a love for this. And then if you have the ability to not get in the way, you then decide to follow the decision that's already made. The decision is already made. That's why when it comes to manifestations, right? When I'm following the decision that's already made, I know it's already done. I'm just participating in the process, For example, I'm flying to another country. Well, I need to participate in that. What's that? Well, I need to get to the airport. I need to go through the security. I need to go through customs. I need to put my bag in, and I need to board the plane. I need to be sitting on I'm participating in the manifestation of traveling from here to another country, right? But it's done. Like I put the tickets there. So, it's happening. I just need to participate. I need to then follow the decision, right? So when I have a feeling that pops, it's like a snap, crackle, pop, I always say. It's that realization. And you just realize, I'd love to travel, right? Not I'd love to travel because I'm sick of my life. That's not necessarily it. Okay, that's big. That's again riddled from reason. You know, you've been doing something you don't enjoy for such a long time. It's causing you pain, and you need a break. Okay, that's not the feeling. The feeling comes. It's not from cause and effect. What I just described to you is cause and effect. You've been doing what you hate your life, or maybe not hate your life, but you hate what you've been doing for such a long time. That's why when I ask people, what is it that you love to do, right? So many people will say, I just want to sit on the beach and drink pina coladas, right? I just want to do nothing, right? And that's never the true answer. That's not the answer. That's a lie. Right? The reason they say that is because they've been conditioned and they've been doing what they need to do. They've been doing something they don't enjoy to do for such a long time that they just need a break. So yes, you're right, you need a break. And that's cause and effect. You've been doing something that you don't enjoy for such a long time. The effect of that is you need a break. But that's not the feeling. And that doesn't mean you don't take a break. You take a break, and that's always very helpful. But I just want to make sure we're distinguishing. That's not what I'm talking about. The feeling rises up without any reasons, right? It comes from the unknown, and suddenly you're like, I love this, right? It's love. It's love. It's in its greatest form. Well, it shows up in its greatest form, if you like, because love itself is formless. But when it shows up in its greatest form, it's like, and you feel it and you realize it, and what you're doing is you're deciding to follow the decision that's already made, right? So when I feel something like that, I just know it's happening. So I'm not trying to manifest it. I'm just participating in the process. I'm walking towards it. I'm walking towards how I feel to do it. Like I'm going to buy this business, for example. I'm going to get into aviation. I just know it's happening, right? I don't need to look for how it's happening, because it's already done, right? I just stay in the moment and I follow the feeling as it presents itself in the moment, and that's how I participate, okay? So I guess what I wanted to share with you guys is that there is a difference between intuitive feeling and the feeling. One is from the known, one is from the unknown. And then please make no mistake to what your emotional reaction is. Emotional reaction is just your unresolved stuff. You know, you have judgments, and your unresolved stuff, right, determines the sunglasses you're wearing, right? So sometimes some people's sunglasses are very, very dirty, and it's unresolved. They can't see clear, and they are having reactions to what they see. They're having reactions to people. They're having reactions to their unresolved pain. Like they have pain, and then they want to they want to get out of the pain, and then they create a feeling which is fabricated. Right? You make it feel like what it feels like. Your ego makes it feel like what, I say to you, the intuitive feeling is light, right? It's almost like suddenly you're like, oh yes, this feels light, but you fabricate the feeling because it's a reaction to your circumstances. It's a reaction to your unresolved perceptions, your own judgments, the things that you haven't yet learned to accept. You're having a reaction towards that. Right? That's why acceptance is so powerful, because if you can accept, it stops causing you to react to things. So please make no mistake, that is not your intuition. Okay? And many people will fabricate a feeling, especially if they've heard me speak about intuition. They're like, okay, yes, he's right, it feels light. And then they almost, manipulate their own feeling to go, well, that feels light. Right? And you don't know it doesn't feel light until you get back into the lightness, and you're like, wow, that was very heavy. Well, I thought it was light in the moment. Yeah, you fabricated the feeling, right? That's what the ego does. It fabricates it. It's your ego is listening to what we're talking about right now. It's listening to what you're understanding right now. So it's going, oh, the feeling's light. So we got to make sure that it perceives to be light. And then you start to fabricate a feeling, but that is still an emotional reaction.